Okay. I'm going to take this off to read. Before we get started, notice to hold teleconference meetings pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 13D David .021. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to the COVID-19 pandemic, by action of the School Board of Pelican Rapids School District, all future meetings of the Pelican Rapids School Board will be conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D David .021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means until further notice. One or more board members may participate by telephone or other electronic means. In accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D David .021, members of the public are not permitted to attend the meeting due to the current health pandemic. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location via Zoom. The link to this meeting will be posted on our district website. Public comment for school board meetings during this opportunity for visitors to speak may be submitted as follows. B. Ripley, BRIPLEY at pelicanrapids.k12.mn.us. With that in mind, let's start our meeting, call it to order. And we have everybody in attendance. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. First item up is going to be approve the meeting agenda. Mr. Korf or Mr. Ness, do we have anything to add or take off?
Mr. Korf, you copied the latest agenda for all the board members at present, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And Ann, I hope you have the most up to date. There was a music ad at point 8. If you have the second page, second line, you've got approved point 8 choir position. So if you've got that agenda, then we're correct. And I believe it's all added. So we're ready to go to approve this agenda, John.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brittany. Any discussion on them approving the meeting agenda? Hearing no discussion, this will be roll call again. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ann?
I don't have the most recent version of it.
Okay.
Can I get it emailed quick?
Oh yeah, I'll send it.
Yeah, Barb will do that. It is online also on the website.
Pull it up on there.
Okay. Did you need some time or how do you said aye? Ann?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda carries. Opportunity for visitors to address the board. Any visitors that need to address the board? Barb, anything on your email?
No.
Okay. We will move on. Next item up will be administrative reports. We have Mr. Derek Nelson. Does he have a report for us? Oh,
Is Mr. Nelson?
he's on the
Mr. Simmons?
I'm sorry.
he's on the participant side.
Do you have Mr. Nelson? He was going to be.
Do we need him to be a participant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on, Derek.
Oh, Rudy, you have to do that.
Rudy has to do
You have
it.
to click on, or Rudy, why don't you make me host again?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, Mr. Nelson, you should be good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, there's a lot of planning that's taken place over the last month at the elementary, and it'll continue as we get the latest numbers in of who's doing distant learning. And so as soon as we get all of those families notified, then we can cement our plan on what the elementary will look like. I'd like to thank Kim Hernandez and wish her and her family good luck as they go on to their new adventure. Kim has been a very big asset to our school. As they move to St. Cloud, we would like to wish them luck, as well as Emily Evenson, as she's moving up to the high school, and like to know both of those will be missed at the elementary. I'd also like to thank the donation that we received for recess material and equipment. This year at elementary, recess will be a lot different and with a lot of restrictions that are in place. So we ordered a bunch of equipment. So each classroom will have soccer balls, footballs, hula hoops, jump ropes, things like that, that they'll have just in their room and be able to use as their class. So thank you for that donation. Next week, we have new staff workshop on August 25th through the 27th. And then all staff workshop is on August 31st through September 2nd. Fall open house will be adjusted due to COVID. We're looking at doing some different things to meet families, but not bringing everyone in one night like we have in the past. This morning, soccer and cross-country practices got going. The State High School League put out some guidelines that are very detailed that we have forwarded to the coaches. And they are all started today, and we'll be following those guidelines. So nice for the kids to get out there and be able to participate. Football and volleyball can practice from September 14th through October 3rd. They have a maximum of 12 practice sessions that they could have in that period of time. Spring sports can practice from October 5th to October 24th, again with a maximum of 12 practice sessions. And again, we're supposed to get more guidelines from the high school league on what these can and can't do during the practice sessions. Like football, we're looking at can you have contact or not? So that's supposed to be coming from the high school league this week. Students are participating in the fall training session must meet all Minnesota State High School League eligibility requirements to participate. Coaches also have to be trained, and the one thing that they have to be trained on this fall is their concussion training. The Minnesota State High School League has a new website, and this is the year that all coaches have to do their coaching training. So at our workshop, we'll get them all caught up on what they need to do for that. During the fall training, there's several things they can't do. They can't have tryouts. So let's say if a player wants to go and do cross country, the coaches can't use this fall 12 practices as a tryout. So when their practice comes in March, they can't be like, no, you didn't make the team. So this isn't a tryout period, it's just for practice. You can't have any type of scrimmages with other schools, also with alumni. They only want to limit the pod to the people that are in our school. No jamborees, competitions, or captain's practices for these fall practices that'll take place. Anyone have any questions for me?
Mr. Nelson, could you explain the ADSYS? You get some movement at your ADSYS positions in the elementary. Could you explain those, please?
Yes. Linda has retired, so we brought back a halftime, Pam Brune and Mary Storson will be splitting that position that Linda had. So they are coming back for a part-time position. So we're happy to have them back.
Mr. Nelson, Mr. Larson had a question.
Hey Derek, Greg Larson here. I know you can't see my lips moving, but I'm talking to you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
You touched on this and maybe you clarified it for me and I just misunderstood it. But with regard to football practice and volleyball practice, there's up to 12 practice sessions between sometime in September and sometime in October, correct?
Correct, yep.
And what policies or guidelines, what are the guidelines from the Minnesota State High School League with regard to those students participating in the 12 practice sessions, either for volleyball or football, and their eligibility to competitively compete in cross country or another fall sport?
They're actually encouraging it that, you know, the kids, if they want to go out for that, either in our case, soccer or cross country, that we let them, and then the coaches work together so they can get some of their practice time in their other sport.
So there's no connection whatsoever between a student who plans on playing football next spring, but elects to run cross country in the fall.
Correct. The only thing we've been given is we've been told that if a student from our school were to transfer to, let's say, North Dakota or South Dakota school where they have football and they participate this fall, they cannot participate next spring on our team because they've already used that one season of eligibility.
And what, is that just for football and varsity practices, the 12 practices for volleyball and football, is that just varsity level?
We're in discussion with that, but I believe it'll be more than just varsity.
What do you believe it to be?
We would like to offer something for junior high as well. So 7 through 12, but we have to work out the details exactly what that's going to look like with the coaches.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Nelson? Hearing no
Do you want me
questions,
to go through the elementary handbook now or do that later?
let's do that now.
Okay. So does everyone have a handbook?
We got it emailed.
Okay. So some of the changes, they're highlighted in yellow on page 5. You know, our new staff, 2nd grade, Daisha Johnson, Madison Oswald. We have a new physical education teacher, Sherry Meester. Mrs. O'Brien did not ask permission to change her last name, but she did it anyway. So congratulations to Mrs. Meester on getting married this summer. Mrs. Pock will be full-time at the elementary. And then ADSIS, we have Abby and Kalis, as well as we talked about Pam Brune and Mary Stortston. The next changes are on page 9. And the bottom talk about supervision of students. And we talked about this at the last meeting. When students get dropped off, they will go right to their classroom. They will not stay in the lobby area outside of the office and go to breakfast. They'll go to the classroom and the cooks will have breakfast delivered to the classroom for all the students this year. The next change is on page 13. Dress code. In there, we added a bottom piece about masks and wearing appropriate masks, ones that are not disruptive to other students, and also that the face coverings need to be worn. Then the next changes are 21, page 21. And changes there are Mr. Corp as the interim superintendent should be, as well as Mr. Ness here. And then the last page is what we talked about at the last meeting is the drop-off lane before school and after school. will be used just for buses. If students are dropping their students off, we want them to use Chauncey Martin parking lot. And that reason would be so when students enter the building, we separate them, and then they get tested at 2 different doors as they're coming in. So, any questions about the handbook?
No. None
Okay,
that I-
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Mr. Korf, you're next.
All right, high school report, student enrollment, we've had 6 students enrolled this past summer and 5 have transferred out. And we ended the school year last May at 422 students. Individual student scheduling, Mrs. Siebels will be communicating with students regarding schedule changes or additions here in the next few weeks. Staff workshop, we got a new staff workshop next week, August 25th through the 27th. And then staff workshop the 31st through September 2nd. Just a reminder, staff will complete 2 flex days before August 31st. 7th grade orientation, there might be a question out there with parents. We're working on 7th grade orientation details. Working on that, we will communicate through our website, Facebook, InstantAlert, and communicate with the 7th grade parents. Open house at the high school, we usually have an open house. Right now, we don't have any plans for an open house for all grades to come in at this time. Staff development, we've had this past week, last week, and then this week, we've had opportunities for staff to come in for some technology training led by Monica Thompson to help prepare them for the start of the school year. Just a reminder of student technology, grades 7 through 12, they'll have one-to-one devices this coming year. They'll have streams, laptops. Viking Gala, last year was our first year of the Viking Gala, where we had silent auction, items to auction off, and that was held at the VFW in the basement there. And then we also had, we inducted our Hall of Fame, members of our Hall of Fame. So this year it's on hold right now, looking at what we can do with the Viking Gala. Homecoming week, we're in the discussion of that, and that's when we had the same week of homecoming week. So in the next couple of weeks here, we're looking at the details of like homecoming, things like that with student activities. Couple items tonight, Emily Evenson, recommending to have her hired as an admin assistant at the front office. And Mrs. Berdorn is going to be in the district office full-time starting as soon as she trains in, Miss Evenson. So choir teachers on the agenda for tonight. We're recommending to hire Zane Files, .8. He graduated from UMD. Minnesota Duluth 2 years ago. Last year he was at International Falls, so he has 1 year. And he would teach 7th grade choir, 8th grade choir, 9th grade choir, Viking choir, then a cappella. And it's nice, last year we had 8th and 9th choir together. We'd like to separate them with all the things with COVID, so that would be teaching 5 hours and 1 hour prep is what that would be. Okay. Then Spanish teacher, Mr. Wagner, he's taught online school before, Spanish. So he'll be able to teach Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and Spanish speakers, so 3 hours. So, and he's gonna be stopping in this week if he's approved, and we'll be meeting and discussing the online piece. So what we'll have there in our classroom, if kids are in person, we'll have a paraprofessional in the classroom, and then have everything set up, and that paraprofessional will help students too with questions and communicating and things like that, working with Mr. Wagner. Upcoming events this week. Tomorrow we'll share the opening plan with the district staff and families. And then again, new staff workshop is next week, and then September 8th would be the first day of school. Any questions?
I don't hear any.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Korf.
Thought I heard Trevor earlier, but I guess not. Not here? Okay. Nothing for buildings and grounds. Mr. Martinez, Finance Director.
Thank you. Bill, you want to go ahead and make me host again?
Done.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So we are reporting on the new fiscal year 21. In front of us is the first board report as of July 31st. Before I dive into the treasurer's report, just a few updates. We are in the middle of our audit right now. Last week, I submitted the final numbers to the audit team, which are going to be tested. So today, I spent all day with the auditors. They're in their office in Fargo, but we've been in Zoom meetings all day. And whenever they ask, I pretty much answer. So this week, I'm pretty tied up with audit. Preliminary numbers look very favorable for our school district. I don't want to give out any disclosures because a lot of it is subject to change based on revenue recognition and payables and receivables by the state of Minnesota. So more to come as the auditors start testing. I'll start giving you guys more updates on what those numbers are going to be. But I can tell you guys that they're going to be pretty good. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Treasurer's report for the end of July. We ended our investment account with $4.5 million. Again, I've been saying all year, $2 of those $1 million belong to the aid anticipation program that we borrowed. Last week, they did send us the invoice to pay it back. So by next week, I'm going to utilize $2 of those $1 million to pay back that short-term borrowing that we did. So that's going to drop our investment account to $2.5 million. A little bit of history. We haven't had that much cash on hand since 2010. So right now we are sitting pretty good. Also, what that allowed us to do is to not borrow again for the upcoming year, even if the state of Minnesota is withholding more than their usual 10%, which they are. They published their report saying that they're going to withhold 20%. So they're going to do a 80-20. I'll have a cash flow analysis ready for you guys in the finance committee so you guys can see where we're going to be at in terms of cash on hand for the remaining of the year. Other thing, associated, this is our OPEB trust account. We ended the balance with $116,000. Once the audit is finalized, we're going to withdraw about $50,000 that we paid in retiree benefits. So again, that OPEB trust account has about 2 more years left of life, and then we'll go ahead and we'll close that particular fund. In terms of the general cash flow, what I have in front of you guys is payroll for the amount of actually, give me 1 second. Okay. Pull up just one more here. There we go. Okay. I saw that in my treasury report. I had just a quick error. So total payroll cost for the month of July were $322,000. Accounts payable was $879,000. What you signed out of the report was the $388,000 sit in this column versus accounts payable. What that was is the interest that we had to pay for our bonds. So our bonds, we have 2 fiscal payments, the one that happens in the 1st of August and we only pay interest, and then the other one that we pay at the beginning of February every year. So that $388,000 is interest that we paid in all of our outstanding bonds. At the end of the cycle, we sat with $697,000 with cash on hand. Petty cash account has been dormant since we stopped paying reps in the middle of the spring. So again, we primarily use the petty cash account for when we need to print a check in between board meetings or primarily to pay reps. The other thing that you're going to start seeing in the new treasurer's report is the student activity accounts. So last year we passed GASB 84 and then a resolution to accept all student activity accounts under board control. And what GASB 84 makes me do is give you guys a fiscal picture of how student activity money is also being managed. So what we did is we merged those accounts, and you're going to start to see this this new account there. We'll go into the next page. Again, collateral report. This is a report that's given by our bank every month, letting us know that we have substantial collateral on hand so they can cover our savings. Then the last piece that we have is simply all the transactions that ran through the school district for the month of July. Again, kind of things to notice. The biggest one is just the Wells Fargo payment for the interest in our bonds. That is all that I have for the treasurer's report. Again, this week is pretty busy with the audit. As the audit continues and I start to see more numbers, I'll let you guys know on the Friday report. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Martinez? Don't hear any questions. Thank you, Rudy.
Mr. Carter, do you want Mr. Bergman to talk about the high school handbook, or do you want to talk when you get to the business item? I just know Mr. Nelson talked about the elementary.
Okay.
It's up to you. Either way.
How far down is that?
It's in the business items, but you can talk about them too.
Okay, why don't we do that? Okay. Let's see, what's before that though? Yeah, let's have Mr. Brueggemann. Do you mind if we butt in front of you, Jerry, and have Mr. Brueggemann give an update on the manual? Yeah, let's do that. As I see, item A is the base learning model adoption. So,
and I'm guessing you all received that email also. So
it's online.
Yeah. Just everything that was changed. Sherry and I tried to go through and highlight. So you got our new changes on page 4 with the staff. And as we roll through just regular schedule, all of our new officers on page 4. And that's our students who were elected this past year. New calendar on page 5. And then we kind of get into some more of the things that are kind of COVID related. Probably the biggest thing is the unknown. And so at the top of page 7, just kind of threw in there, due to the uncertainty of the school year, due to COVID-19, the school administration may see the need to make changes to rules and expectations that are laid out in the next few pages. Students and parents will be notified if changes are implemented. Just something we felt needed to we have no idea what situations are going to rise. And so we wanted the ability to make changes if necessary. Then it goes through and just highlighted in yellow are the changes then that kind of reflect how we are going to run the school and how absences and tardies are going to be not only in school kept, but also online. That's kind of like 7, page 8. At the bottom of page 8, behavior discipline. Again, we're trying to convey that the expectations of the student is going to be carried over to them online. That's pretty much what the biggest changes in the student handbook kind of roll through. Just kind of getting down to page 15, or page 12, I'm sorry, right away. That's our technology. All of that then is new, based on our experiences from last spring. The high school group kind of came up with this information, and that rolls into page 13 as far as technology stuff. And then we get into on page 14, just rights and responsibilities now with this new type of learning. possibilities. Again, it just extends it over into the online world. And kind of goes in then from discipline action of violating those rules on page 15. Then probably, well, distance learning information is all put in there now. And then probably the other major thing is going to be something that just kind of, I thought about when I saw, I think Mr. Korf sent me a very crazy looking face mask. And on page 18, we kind of put in under dress and grooming that there will be, you know, certain types of face masks that may distract and may be taken away and replaced with a normal one. And then same goes with backpacks, which are going to be allowed to be used because we're not going to allow the students to roll back to their lockers, try to keep traffic flowing all in the same direction. So those would be the major aspects of the student handbook.
So I'd encourage all the parents to read this deeply because there's a lot of yellow changes in here. So it spells out a lot how the year is going to go.
Yes, I thought the student group and Sherry Verdorn did a good job of coming up with a lot of possibilities that needed to be covered.
I think the biggest change in the high school is what parents and students in high school have to understand is backpacks, that they'll be allowed backpacks to, you know, put all their stuff in and go from class to class.
Okay.
And if they have a jacket in that, they can drop it off in the locker in the morning to just, and at the end of the day. And we'll have dismissal time, you know, we won't have everyone going at the same time, we'll all going by grades. So.
Okay.
Then to go along with that in the hallway, like you've seen maybe in some videos on the news, we will have directions, one-way hallways throughout the building to keep traffic all flowing in the same direction.
Okay.
Street signs.
Okay. Passing lanes or no?
Speed bump, tortoise crossing.
Stoplights. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question for Mr. Brueggemann. On page 7, under the attendance category, attendance section.
Yep.
Towards the bottom of 7, the 2 highlighted items, in-school tardiness and online tardiness. How are tardies, you know, for in-school tardiness, it says tardies will be tracked and may impact attendance grade.
Yep.
What's an attendance grade?
Attendance grade is something that we are really, it's always been there for teachers to do, but we believe that attendance with online learning happening in maybe hybrid or whatever is decided, that getting kids to zoom in to our classrooms, attend our classrooms is going to be huge. And so we are going to, with the staff, promote that 25% of the grade for that student is being a participant in the classroom or online. But so as far as a tardy online, just like this meeting, you zoom in and you as a teacher can look and go, okay, these students are here. They're ready to Zoom right when we're ready to start the class. And if they're not, then that could technically be used as a tardy. Now, how well a teacher goes with the tardy, that's going to be up to them. But so students know that tardiness could be included on their online grading, that's listed in the book.
My concern is tardiness, and this is my opinion. Isn't that more of a disciplinary matter versus an actual, I'm thinking of a student who is tardy 20 times a year and is able to successfully achieve all 100% of the actual, if you call it curriculum, I might be using the wrong language here.
Yeah, no, I
But
understand you.
my example is teacher A gives 10 tests a year. Student A is tardy 30 times a year, but aces all 10 tests that are graded per year. That student may not get an A in that class.
Possibility is there.
Why not? I don't understand the connection between tardiness and the child's ability to learn and obtain achievement when it comes to learning the actual material.
I think when you go with that, just even in my role as a teacher, their ability to follow classroom rules and behavior guidelines has always, I would guess, in 90+% of teachers' grading has always been a part of it. And so we are trying to build and teach the importance of different skills, and being on time for work is a good skill to teach. And so we're constantly reinforcing good skills, good habits. Just like the student who turns in his work 3 days late, and that work is just unbelievably good, but it's 3 days late. You know, so we as teachers have to say, yeah, your work, your knowledge is really good, but in order for you to really be a success, you need to meet deadlines.
So at what point does a student's grade get distinguished by disciplinary issues? I mean, how would you use that rationale if a student was disruptive and pushed another student in a classroom? And that student had never been tardy, but that student pushed another student in the classroom. Is that student who pushed that other student in the classroom potentially subject to a lower grade compared to what he or she actually achieved through the curriculum?
I would say, just like tardies, you're not going to downgrade a student for 1 or 2 occasional tardy.
Well, what at 20?
20, I'd say you're bordering on, hey, you have a bad habit here and we need to make adjustments to it. If the kid pushes over another kid once a week in the classroom, I'm removing that kid probably the 2nd or 3rd time he's doing it. So he's removed from the classroom, thus he's unexcused, and then his grade is going to get, or her grade is going to get impacted by it.
So what are disciplinary issues that don't affect a grade? Because I was always under the impression that disciplinary issues are handled independent of the student's positioning with regard to his or her grade.
Could be, I would say, even, you know, a fight in the hallway and the kid is suspended. They are unexcused, and so they're unexcused from the class, they're unexcused technically from being able to complete any of the work during the unexcused periods. So there is very few situations that in a school system that behavior-wise would not be out of the realm of hurting your grade. Just because, once again, we are in a holistic kind of situation. We want to teach kids that, hey, you might be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't get along with the world, if you can't follow the rules, if you don't get that habit of successes, which is really what the world out in general, they want us to do that. They're asking and begging us to do the job.
Doesn't that allow for a little bit, I mean, it becomes so subjective though, versus what a student puts on paper. It becomes so subjective. Each situation is so subjective because it's based solely on a particular teacher's perspective on whether or not that constituted a disciplinary action or not, or a disciplinary problem or not. Why not rely upon things that are absolutely objective for grading purposes, and at the same time still accomplish the goal of teaching kids through a secondary independent disciplinary action avenue where they lose certain privileges and things like that with regard to other components of school. I guess that's my concern with
That's
the
also a part of
subjectivity
it.
of the discipline. Because one teacher may allow a certain amount of visiting, one teacher may not, depending on who you have, could impact your grade. How do you assure consistency throughout the entire school when it comes to grading, which I'm not here pushing grading. Grades are very important. Doesn't tell the whole story in any capacity. Teacher, you guys know that better than I do. But how do you attain any sort of consistency from classroom to classroom when you have teachers that perceive certain actions as disciplinary problems or not?
I think you never have a balance, okay, as far as all the teachers are different. What I might read as a teacher and think, wow, this is A work. Another teacher may read it and go, I see this, I see this, I see this, depending on the rubrics and how they feel or what they're stressing is important. I don't think there's ever a uniform way, a uniform way to teach. And what we encourage our students to do, just like we encourage people out in the world, is you got to know your boss. You got to know how they are, who they are. And I think the students are really, really good at knowing what their teachers accept and don't accept. And so I just think that tardies and absences is a huge part, is a huge lesson that needs to be stressed. And I really believe that's so when it comes to online learning, where there's going to be a lot of kids who want to, as we found out last spring, a lot of kids who are not going to tune in. And last year, we didn't have anything to put a bite that says, no, being a part of the class is really, really important to your education.
I think I'll add in here and maybe flip this to more of a classroom participation in a positive way, in the sense that being in the class, being able to participate in a discussion like we're having right now, both listening and contributing to it, there's value in that. And I think we're really trying to stress students who are Zooming in on their off days, they need to be there. This is part of the expectation to be there. And if you're tardy or if you're unexcused too many times, you aren't there to participate and be part of that classroom. Yes, you can pass the test part of it, but there's many more things than just an assessment that is part of the class. So I think that's where we're trying to go. And I think Mr. Bergman has talked about that, and the staff about we really need the kids to understand that if the board happens to choose a hybrid method, and if they're in school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the expectation on Wednesdays and Fridays, you're there as well. You're there every single day. It's just a different mode of learning. So that's probably the biggest thing we're trying to get across here is you have to be there, and you have to be there every day.
I just have a quick question. So technology is as good as, your connection. So when students are having issues with connections, what can we do to help support that? Obviously there's going to be students that maybe are late from a class due to some type of connection issue. Is that laid out in the handbook on what they should do should that happen?
Yes, it is. It's listed at some point. It tells them under student expectations who they communicate with in a number of different failed situations, kind of like technology and stuff like that. So they contact our technology department, Mr. Simmons, if that's happening. And then the biggest thing is teachers care a lot about the kids, and they understand that this is going to be trying times for a lot of people. And if a kid's struggling, we are going to bend over backwards to kind of give them all the help necessary. The kind of like, okay, I understand this was your situation. Here's something that you can do to make it up. I really think you'll find that unless it's a flat out situation where kids are not doing anything, if there's attempts going on, our teaching staff will provide ways that these tardies or these missed sessions can be made up very easily.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for
Yep.
Mr. Brueggemann. So going back to the two provisions in question under the attendance, how is a student informed that tardiness will in fact impact attendance grade?
Yeah, good question. That is set up by the teacher, and it's part of their, at the beginning of each session, and we are going to do the same thing with online with our teachers. They are supposed to have a syllabus, and a part of that syllabus is to show what they're grading and how they grade and what they grade on. And that's also supposed to be explained to the kids within the first week of school that, hey, I'm a teacher that I'll give you 2 tardies. I'm a teacher that'll give you 1. I'm a teacher that'll give you, you know, and they go through this, and I really believe our teaching staff does a good job. From the years I've been here, the kids know who's tough on tardies and who's tough in different situations. So that is supposed to be spelled out to the students by each teacher. So again, the uniformity of it, again, you're not going to have uniformity in a school system in a lot of those areas.
Well, and I appreciate the lack of objectivity when it comes to different teachers teaching the same course in terms of the instruction and the grading. But there are certain classes that do grading that do not have really subjectivity. I'm thinking like classes that involve specific formulas that require a specific outcome. So in that case, it would be consistent from classroom to classroom if that same teacher instructed that sort of class where it involved formulas that required an exact specific outcome to result from the formula. So that's where my concern is in a situation like that, where those two teachers have pretty close or almost absolute objectivity when it comes to the grading of the actual assignment or test or whatever it is, but perceive discipline differently.
I think if that becomes an issue, then student parents would voice that concern, and then we'd have to go into the classroom and take a look and see, okay, did you, teacher A, spell out that this was a part of yours? Do you have it? Do you have it in your syllabus? So the student knows, hey, this is what I'm going to be graded on because this person believes this is important. And okay, this is what this teacher. And I think you find from elementary all the way through college that's the way it goes. And then I think you'll find the same thing out in the working world, that there are going to be certain people that are doing the same job that have the same expectations, 2 managers, 2 different companies. Well, this manager really focuses in on, hey, I want quality over quantity. This wants quantity over quality. They're both making, money for their business. Which one's successful? And if you're a quality guy, just, yeah, I'll go over to this manager. Well, I'll be really successful for him. Or And that's just, I think there are things set up for us to make sure that somebody is not unfairly treated as a student that they don't know about.
I think the biggest thing is we're trying to educate the whole child. And we're trying to teach them skills like Mr. Bergman said, to be on time, to participate. Engagement is important.
So
That's what we'd like to do.
if a child's disruptive, like, is the logic, if a child's disruptive and has behavioral problems, that lowering his or her grade will help that child become less disruptive?
It's like a consequence. You know, you have a consequence.
Oh, I get it is a consequence,
Yep.
but is that the logic that the discipline, that lowering the grade will help that student and decrease behavioral issues versus just independently disciplining that child, whether it's through suspension or restricting certain benefits that other students are afforded outside of the classroom? I mean, that's the logic, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Shall we move on?
Yep.
Okay.
I would like to just, I mean, I don't know if this board's ever discussed at length disciplinary issues versus, I'll call it test-related achievement or result-related achievement, but I think that's something that's worth discussing with administration and staff down the road in light of what in my opinion, can be quite a bit of subjectivity on the side of teachers when it comes to a student's grade.
Maybe put that in the parking lot and a future work
Yep.
session down the
Yep.
road.
Thank you.
Or if a small group wants to meet.
And I haven't talked to Mr. Bergman or Mr. Korf about that, so I appreciate you guys giving me your thoughts, and I just wanted to, those are the two sections that stuck out, so I appreciate that.
Sorry, Mr. Ness, you're next. Think you're muted.
Yeah, there we go. Well, grading, yeah, that is more than one work session. It's a whole philosophy and all of that. So I agree. It would need some further discussion. So a couple more things on the consent agenda items, just for your information. There's a PSEO agreement with M-State. That's an annual agreement. There's a yearbook agreement, those things. And just a clarification, you're approving a 0.8 choir position. There already is a 0.5, so really what you're approving an additional 0.3 for the additional. So Zane Biles will be hired at a 0.8, but that's an increase of 0.3. And let's see, just updating the board a little bit on how all of this is working. You know, I don't know if I've ever seen a summer where so many meetings and you know, an incident command team meeting about funding, meeting about PPE, the personal protective equipment, the curriculum, the staffing. It's been rather intense for the admin team there, and appreciate the work that they're doing and all the staff helping. A little bit of help on the funding category is coming in place. So I'd like to jump back to Rudy to explain the additional funding that's coming our way, all school districts' way.
Thank you, Mr. Ness. Like Mr. Ness said, lots of meetings, very constructive meetings. What is behind the numbers? So early in the summer, we received the first initial funding allocated and granted to the school district. This is part of the first CARES Act allocation, which is comprised of the GEARS and ESSER funds. The GEAR is part of the governor's emergency executive order. And then the second part is ESSER formula. So that is tied 90% to our title funds. Needless to say, the first part of our Corona relief pack is going to give the school district about $238,000, and we have the ability to, and we have been using the ability to allocate the funds based on the needs for the school district, anywhere from additional staffing to PPE equipment to technology. And it's been very, very constructive to make sure that those gaps that we were afraid that we're going to eat some dollars are now backed up by grants by the state and by the Fed. The other piece that is right now pending approval by the Finance Committee legislation at MDE is the second part of the Coronavirus Relief Act. So when the governor announced the models for the school district, he also committed about $430 million to school districts. What that meant for us is that they took all that money and divided by the number of pupils in our school district, and Pelican is going to receive an additional $268,000. Again, that money is still pending approval, but the allocations have already been given out by MDE, which tells us that it's a for sure go. So at the end of the day, we're going to get a little over $500,000 to help us with this gap in funding for all of the additional expenses due to the pandemic. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you know, one of the big meetings that we attend regularly, Corp and I, is the Lakes Country superintendent meetings. You know, for example, at this last meeting, we went around the room and everyone shared how they are entering the school year, the base learning plan, which is the decision the board is coming up with on 7A, or so right after the consent agenda items. So we're able to get lots of information, policies, communications to parents, different things. So just appreciate all that. I think I'll just stop there for questions. We have a lot on the agenda yet, so I will stop here.
Any questions before we move on? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ness. Next item up will be consent items. Board meeting minutes, July 20th, 2020 meeting. Financial claims, July bills. Treasurer's report. Item D, accept donations to the Viking Elementary School for recess activities, anonymous, $3,000. For personnel, we have accept the resignation of Emily Evenson as Viking Elementary School para and Club Vikes coordinator. Accept the resignation of Linda Hoff as ADSIS interventionist. Accept the resignation of Kimberly Hernandez as Viking preschool para. Hire Tyler Haugrud as a mower. Hire Emily Evenson as administrative assistant. Hire Mary Storson as part-time ADSIS interventionist. Hire Pam Bruin as part-time ADSIS interventionist. Hire Jamison Wagner at .5 Spanish teacher. Approve a .8 choir position. And then hire Zane Biles as .8 choir teacher. Item F, approve a medical leave for Charlotte Setter from August 31st, 2020 to approximately October 30th, 2020. Item G, approve the post-secondary education options agreement for the 2021 school year with Minnesota State Community and Technical College. And item H, approve the yearbook agreement with Jostens for 2020-2021. I believe most of that has already been explained to us. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Motion by Greg. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brittany. Any discussion on the consent items?
Just a quick question on the choir position. Does that cover the elementary need there too?
So Ms. Park will be full-time elementary, so we'll keep her in one building for this school year.
Any additional discussion? Motion by Greg, a second by Brittany for the consent items. Hearing no additional discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. It'll be roll call again. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Consent items carried. Okay, we're halfway through the agenda. Next item up, business items. Item A, approve the resolution adoption of base learning model for the 2020-21 school year and other COVID-related matters. So who would like to speak on that?
I guess just, a few things. We're looking at opening the plan here. If you're looking at the area school districts, Barnesville, at the elementary, Barnesville, Fergus Falls, Underwood, Perham, Detroit Lakes, LPA, and Frazee. At the elementary level, they're all planning on in-person learning for the fall. At the high school, out of those schools, Barnesville is looking at in-person for like 4 days a week that they're looking at, and then Fridays they're going to be all distant. And then Underwood is looking at in-person. Fergus, Perham, and Detroit Lakes, LPA, and Frazee are looking at hybrid at this time. Now things can change, with all the districts, but that's what they're looking at right now. The county numbers, last Thursday they came out, the county number was at 6.21. The week before was 6.04, but in July 18th, it was 8.1. So numbers have gone down slightly since July 18th. So when you look at the county numbers at 6, the recommended options based on the 14-day case rate that has been provided by the county is in-person learning for all students from 0 to less than 10. Survey results, number of students that completed the fall commitment survey. Now you have to remember this was as 2 o'clock this afternoon. We had 844 students that completed the survey as 2 o'clock. We had 23.5% saying that they're going to be full distance learning at that time. Okay. Percent of needing bus transportation was 37.7%. And then needing internet was 11.4%. So our plan right now is to provide the information to the bus company of the students that are planning to ride the bus, so they have those names. And then we're planning to contact the families that need internet hookup and try to help them get connected. That's our plan here over the next couple of weeks. We broke down the students into grade, and then we looked at, what the full distance learning and how many would be predicted in the classroom of each grade level. So we're ranging anywhere from, I think 14 was the lowest to 21 with the kids that are going full distance learning. So you subtract them from the grade level and you divide it by 3 because we're pretty much a 3-section school except for 6th grade, it's a 2-section. We'd be looking at from 14 to 21 students per classroom if you take out the kids that are going full distance at this time. So if you go hybrid, then you just take half of those numbers. So elementary numbers, right now, like kindergarten class would be right around 17. 1st grade would be around 15 per classroom. 2nd grade would be 16 per classroom. 3rd grade would be around 18. 4th grade would be around 14 per classroom. 5th grade would be at 15 per classroom. And 6th grade would be around 16 per classroom. Now, there is some students we have not heard from yet, have not connected with. So those numbers could go down. And I guess the numbers could go up if some kids change their mind going from distance learning to in-person or the district model, if they change their mind here in the next week or 2. In the high school, 7th grade is a smaller class, they're at 60, but there'd be around 16 per classroom. 8th grade would be at 19, 9th grade would be at 21. 10th, 11th, and 12th would be right around 20. We have to remember some are PSEO, some classes. And then you have to remember in the high school, we have some classes that are electives that might be a little bit smaller. And you got ELL and special ed services. So it does make those numbers a little bit smaller. They won't be exactly at 20 or so. We would in the high school, hybrid, in person, we will look at, for example, if we were in person in the high school during the school year, we will look at classrooms. Teachers won't be like, this is my classroom for every class period. If they have a bigger class, we'll look at moving them to a bigger room. So we're looking at having some larger rooms for the bigger classes this year. Hallways in the high school, like Mr. Bergman said, during passing time, it'll be like a one-way. So they'll have a route they'll go to get to their next class. We'll have backpacks. They won't be going to their locker between classes. They'll carry all their books and materials. They can go to their locker at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Right now, we're working on lunch, how lunch would work in the high school. We look at like 3 lunches, depends on what Ranford Hybrid. We'll look at keeping the 2 lunches, but they'll be at one table facing one way, so they're in one direction. We'll have 3 different areas. If we would be in person, we would look at possibly getting more space for lunch to spread them out. Also looking at 3 lunches, 3 lunch times, if we were in person, depending on what plan we go with. Other than that, elementary lunch and breakfast, they're looking at in the classroom. And then for some classes, like the lower levels, they might go to the cafeteria for their lunch. So they're still working on those details. At the elementary school, depending on if it's hybrid or in person, with the distance learning, they're looking at using title teachers or the grade level teachers, depending on the number of kids. That's what they're going to do here over the next few days, is look at each grade level and then create a plan of who is going to work with the distance learners at the elementary school. So every student will be provided a device and a schedule, a teacher to teach each area. So then on our website too, we have all our plans for all 3 of them. So if we have to transition during the year, they're all up there, and we communicate through instant alert, through the website, Facebook, to communicate any changes. Even after we make the plan tonight, if there's anything that affects the plan that we have in place, we would do the communication through our website, instant alert, and Facebook. What we're trying to do is, we look at the safety of our staff and students. Also, we have to look at the learning piece too. We want to see some growth from our students. And the biggest thing is, I think we're really concerned about is mental health, and mental health for our students and our staff, and keeping that balance for everyone.
Mr. Court, part of the MDE guidelines, the Safe School Plan, was that every district was required to meet with public health with their COVID and command team, and we met with them last Friday. Can you go through that process too, please?
Yep. So on Friday, our COVID team met with the county health, and we went over our plan, and each one, and we talked about what it would look like in the building, and they were approved everything we're doing. They were satisfied with our plan, and that we'll work with them weekly. And if we have any cases that are reported, or if they learn about any cases in our area, then we'll work with them to look at our plan that we're in and make any adjustments. So they'll be working with us for any changes that we need throughout the school year.
And then we also have access to the response team, the area response team through Lakes Country.
Through Lakes Country, yep.
I kind of explain what that is.
Yep, so Lakes Country Cooperative will have a response team, and what they're going to be doing is working with us also, and working with our administration, and they'll be doing this with every district, and we meet with them weekly too. As the superintendents, we meet with them and share ideas, share what's going on, and they'll be there to support us along with county health. Also, what we'll have is a health aide at each building, one at the high school, one at the elementary. We will have cameras that will, when they walk through the door, it will take their temp. So it can do 30 groups of them, so we're not having long lines, they're not bunched up, they'll just be walking in, they'll take their temp. If someone has a fever of 100 or higher, it will take a picture of them, send it to our group that we have, our admin, our health aide, and our office staff, and then we will bring them to the office, and then we'll go through those steps, retake their temp, things like that. And then we'll have it in the lunch area, so when they're going through lunch, we'll have it there too. So we're doing checks at the beginning of the day, and then in the middle of the day. But it'll be nice to have a health aide at each building.
Yes.
And the team did have a recommendation to the board, but Ann, you go ahead. You had a question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back to touch on mental health. I don't know, did you guys get notification that there's a new crisis text line also that Otter Tail County is offering where people can text in if they're in crisis mode and needing some help with mental health?
I saw it posted on their Facebook page.
Yeah, well, they didn't share it with us on Friday, so, well, that's good to know. And I'll share that with Mrs. Siebels and Becky Holland, and yes.
It might be good to put up some posters, you know, especially at the high school level for sure.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Ness.
I was just going to ask Mr. Korf to share the recommendation from the COVID incident command team to the board, and then that'll really start your discussion, I think, once the recommendation comes forward.
Yep, so we have the COVID team, and then we have our fall planning team. And our fall planning team and our COVID team feel that looking at the county numbers, we should look strong with, that's recommending that we can do. And then looking at our cases that we have in our community, in our school. And right now, recommendation is they'd like to look at it in person at the elementary and then look at the high school a hybrid, but they didn't know the numbers too, what the numbers would be, who would be full distance. So, and looking at our numbers, we're pretty close at the high school, getting to that 14, 15 right in there that you'd be thinking what a hybrid would be. So, so the recommendation, both groups was really looking at in-person at the elementary school and then at a hybrid to an in-person at the high school. And one thought was at the high school is looking at a hybrid, get kids used to the new, I would say routines that we have in place, backpacks, the one-way, things like that. And they thought the transition right away with having, half the kids right away would be helpful. There are concerns, and brought up one, with technology, at home and things like that. So that is a concern of ours. But also, we want to go into the year. We want to have kids in front of us as much as possible, of course. And how do you do that in a safe way? So.
I think we have to be realistic too. We're going to have a few outbreaks here and there, and it's going to disrupt. And I think that's just the realistic nature of it. It'd be nice to get through most of the year without much of an interruption. But every school is going to face the similar circumstances, I'm afraid. But I'm comfortable with that recommendation.
Is everybody aware how we would plan to do hybrid at the high school? Like last year, it was like the teachers available, like from 9 to 10, log on, asking questions, whatever. I believe that's going to change this year, correct?
Yep. So what we're planning right now is that in a hybrid model at the high school is that you'd follow your schedule if you're in school or at home, is you'd follow your same schedule. And then you'd be virtual, of course, from home, but you would be interacting with the teacher through Zoom or through Google Classroom. Okay. What we want to do is we want students to be have student contact, because that mental health piece, number one. Number two is the routine of each day. So, there's concerns of, kids staying up late and they're only going to school twice. The contact, will they miss the other day and they're only going once or going none? So last spring was very difficult to connect with some of our students, but that was all last minute too, and so we didn't all have internet hooked up at home and things like that. So that was a big change at that time. So.
Yeah, and I see you had your microphone on for a second. Did you have something, Ann?
I'll get my mute to unmute here.
Okay.
Just wanted to reiterate that you have a really nice plan on the website. I'm guessing it's probably on Facebook too for parents to look through and kind of get a feel for what distance learning might look like, what the 3 different learning plans are. I think that it was a pretty nicely put together document by the district and staff, and they put a lot of hard work into it, and I want to thank them as well.
Yes, so getting, what, 800 or a little over 800 responses on that fall survey with contacting parents. That's pretty impressive, so,
All staff worked hard,
yes,
worked over the weekend.
yes. Any comments from the board?
No, same, I'm surprised at how many did respond or how many they got to, so.
Brittany, Brenda, Greg? Anybody?
I think it's just gonna make a big difference that just the kids know that they are in class every day. I mean, so they'll be with their classmates. It'll just be that they'll either be virtual or in person. So I think that's gonna help a lot.
And that will be at the high school. At the elementary, they're going to, create a plan of who's going to work with the kids that are distance learners. So that's through either title teachers or their grade level teachers.
It's probably a little easier to be more restrictive early and then be able to loosen up if we get into it a few weeks and go, maybe we can do in person for the high school too. I guess this could be fluid and it'll probably change. Is that what this resolution is kind of about, or?
Basically, an overview of the resolution, really what it says is the board is deciding on a base plan to start the school year and is assigning or giving the duty to the superintendent to work with the staff to make sure it's carried out as you decide. That would be the big picture in a nutshell, what this does. There's lots more. We'll have to read through the whole thing, but that's basically what it says.
Okay, so in the open area, I would put, recommend the school board that in-person Viking Elementary and hybrid learning for high school? Or
I would actually state the grade levels.
specific grades?
Specific, I'd say K-6 and 7-12 is what I would state. Yep.
Okay. You want me to read it first and then we get a?
I think you should get a motion and a second, and then have some more discussion, and then read through. You could get a motion and a second, read the document, have discussion, and then ask for approval.
Sure. Okay.
John, can I add one quick thing?
Yes.
Our preschool is looking at doing a hybrid model. They've had 4-year-olds be there all day. They're looking at half days because they really can't do a rest time with no mats or anything. So they're looking at a hybrid no matter what the rest of the elementary is going with.
Okay. Does that need to be part of this resolution?
I think this is a K-12 resolution, and will allow the early childhood to preschool to communicate with their parents at their choice, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution adoption of base learning model for the 2021 school year. And other COVID-19 related matters.
Okay. Motion, we have a second.
I second.
Second, Brenda? Okay.
Could you repeat that motion? It was difficult to hear.
Sure, I will make the motion to approve the resolution adoption of base learning model for the 2021 school year and other COVID-19 related matters.
And that was by Mike, and we had a second by Brenda.
Okay.
And now you want me to read it, or should we do discussion first?
I think reading it so everyone hears what the what this resolution says would probably be best right now, and then have discussion that items, we might need to clarify some of the items in the resolution.
Okay. The resolution adoption of base learning model for the 2020-2021 school year and other COVID-19 related matters. Whereas the school district, whereas Minnesota statute section 123B.09 vests the care, management, and control of independent districts in the school board. And whereas the superintendent of independent school district 548, herein the superintendent is responsible for the management of the schools, the administration of all school district policies, and is directly accountable to the school board. And whereas when responsibilities are not specifically prescribed, nor school district policy applicable, the superintendent shall use personal and professional judgment, subject to review by the school board pursuant to school district policy 302, superintendent. Whereas on March 13, 2020, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz issued Emergency Executive Order 20-01, which declared a peacetime emergency in Minnesota in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas on July 30th, 2020, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz issued Emergency Executive Order 20-82 and the Safe Learning Plan for 2020-2021, the Safe Learning Plan, which set forth 5 learning models: in-person learning for all, in-person learning for elementary students, and hybrid learning for secondary students, hybrid learning for all students, hybrid learning for elementary students, and distance learning for secondary students, and distance learning. And authorize all school districts in the state of Minnesota to select and implement an appropriate base learning model in accordance with and subject to the Safe Learning Plan. And whereas the Minnesota Department of Education, MDE, has issued and may continue to assist written guidance for Minnesota schools on educational issues related to COVID-19. And whereas the Minnesota Department of Public Health, MDH, has issued and may continue to issue written guidance for Minnesota schools on public health issues related to COVID-19. And whereas the superintendent and the administration of the school district have conferred with the school board regarding the available learning models, the current MDE and MDH requirement for each, and other relevant information. And whereas, based upon the collective consideration of these factors, the superintendent has recommended to the school board that in-person learning for grades K through 6 and hybrid learning for grades 7 through 12 will be the base learning model to be implemented at the commencement of the 2020-2021 school year. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the school board of the Independent School District 548 as follows. Section 1, the superintendent is hereby directed to implement the following base learning model to open the 2020-2021 school year. Grades K through 6 in-person learning and grades 7 through 12 hybrid learning. Note, school districts may wish to consider designating a district-wide learning plan or separate building-specific plans in recognition of the possibility that school buildings may be located in different counties where the localized health data may vary. Section 2, the superintendent is hereby authorized after consultation with the school board chair and notification of the school board to select and implement a different learning model for the school board or any specific school buildings without school board action if the superintendent reasonably believes that prompt implementation of a different learning model is necessary and that constraints of time and public health considerations render it impracticable to hold a school board meeting to approve the implementation. The learning model selected and implemented by the superintendent shall continue in effect unless and until the school board, in consultation with the superintendent and appropriate school district staff and public health officials, deem it is in the best interest of the school district and its students to implement a different learning model. Section 3, the superintendent will provide regular updates to the school board regarding the school district's effort to implement COVID-19 related educational and public health guidance issued by MDE and MDH respectively. And then adopted the 17th day of August. 2020. Any discussion before we move on to a roll call?
Minnesota,
The comment that I would make is that, it has a lot of things where the superintendent is directing, as an example is, say the second week of school, there's 5 cases, students and staff. The superintendent will then call the COVID incident command team together, and they will have public health. They'll have the regional support team from the Lakes Country Service Cooperative, MDH, Minnesota Department of Health, MDE. We will all combine our efforts, and then they will make a recommendation to the superintendent to bring to the board. If quick action is needed the next day, or say that's a Friday, Monday, we need to go from hybrid learning to distance learning. The superintendent would make sure that the board chair knows who's on the COVID team, all the board members know, be prior to any communication to anybody else, and then get the approval, not approval, but this is the direction they're taking. And then if in an emergency, we can have a quick meeting via Zoom, at any time. Typical special meetings, you have to have 72 hours notice, but an emergency meeting, if it happened on a Friday late afternoon, we could meet Saturday morning or Monday morning. And so that's how I would see, as long as I'm interim superintendent, working with Mr. Korf, and he'll be the interim superintendent soon. That's how we have visited and believe that this would be handled, that type of information. Smarter head, lots of heads together with public health, medical is needed in these types of decisions. And I don't think Mr. Korf or I would feel comfortable making medical decisions without lots of data and support from the team.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larson?
the Minnesota governor requires masks to be worn in all public places, right? That's correct, right?
Correct.
It's hard for me to understand how, and I know other school districts are making decisions, but it's hard to wrap my head around a governor's order mandating wearing masks and having any school district consider having in-school class learning at this point. We're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids wearing masks pretty much 80–90% of the school day. I feel like I don't want to look at other school districts as an example because there's no precedent to where we're at right now. We don't know the long-term effects, to the best of my knowledge, with regard to COVID-19 and those that contract it. How do we justify students being in class and at the same time be subject to a governor order that requires masks to be worn? To me, that governor's order means something. And I know that I'm looking at the order itself specific to the mask only, and that the school districts do have the discretion to make its own decision based on certain guidelines. But how do we justify that? How do we justify kids being in school when they're required to wear masks? How does that balance out? Why are they wearing masks? Because there's a high risk of transmission of COVID-19. That's my understanding. And correct me if I'm misstating anything. I'm not on the COVID committee, but that's what I have a hard time grasping and understanding, is how we put children and staff in that position when there's so much that is unknown with regard to COVID-19, to the best of my knowledge. So my opinion, and in fact, I think when our family received the survey, I'm certain we marked distance learning, but on a personal level, but also from an opinion perspective as a school board member, it's my opinion that and it's hypocritical. I'm sitting here right now in front of between 12 other people or whatever might be the case, but to envision a classroom of 12 kids, kindergarten kids, first grade kids, 15 kids at a time, it's hard to process for me. If there's anybody that can help ease my mind, I'm certainly willing to listen. But that's definitely a concern of mine. I don't know how you can have both, where a governor's order requires pretty significant action. I mean, we're all wearing masks right now, but yet we're entertaining the possibility of having many young people and staff being in close quarters with each other with a disease that was only known to us less than a year ago. So I'm seeking if anybody has any sort of information to help kind of ease my concerns, any input. Like I said, I was not on the committee, so I don't want to have my concerns be a concern about what the committee's done or anything like that. This is just simply an opinion of mine based on where we're at as a society. And right now it's hard for me to overcome those concerns.
Can I make a comment from calling families with the survey?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody.
Well, I know today when we were making calls.
Can you speak up, please?
Sorry, today, this is Angie Westby, first grade teacher. I helped make calls today to families about the commitment survey. And I know that there were 2 families that said if kids have to wear masks in person, that they would choose distance learning over in-person learning if masks were required. It may change the mind of some families.
So saying if they didn't have to wear masks, they wouldn't come to school? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't take the phone call. That they just don't want their kids to have to wear masks in school is what I understood. And if they would send them if they did not have to.
If they didn't have to wear them, it was.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the masks they're required by MDE in this plan also.
You know, the masks is a governor mandate, and because it is a governor mandate, the school boards do not have to have a policy. So if the governor lifts that requirement, we don't have to go in and change a policy. So yes, it is part of the plan right now. And you know, to go back to Mr. Larson's question, you know, everyone is struggling with this decision, and so that's why when the Safe Learning Plan came out, all districts had to offer distance learning. So then you have the scale of the families. They don't want anyone, they want their child in school, they don't want them wearing a mask, to I'm going to have the distance learning. And so I guess what I would say, Mr. Larson, is the data. And what we were given is that document on July 30th, I guess it was, from the Minnesota Department of Health, the Minnesota Department of Education, the recommendation, and they gave us clear guidelines that we could be in person if we have 0 to 9 cases per 10,000. And right now, Otter Tail County is at 6.21. So that gives the board the option to go distance, hybrid, or in person. I think I guess most school districts are really concentrating on the early learner to get them as in person every day if possible. and lots of reasoning behind that. And I think the district is actually taking a cautious approach, because you could be in person at the 712 as well. But what will happen here is if you have 25% of your students distance learning, and then you have 75% left, so now you're at about 38% of your students that'll be in every day. So getting everything running smoothly, moving forward, and then if everything's going well, you could increase that to anyone who wants to be in person could do that. So I guess I would say the answer is looking at the data, and the recommendation from the Minnesota Safe Learning Plan is how the fall planning team and then also the COVID incident command team made the recommendation to the board.
I have a question, and maybe between Mr. Brueggemann and Corp, they'll answer it, but if a student and their family ends up getting quarantined, are they able to do distance learning if they are feeling up for it? Are they sick leave, absence? How does that work?
Are you talking staff or students?
Students,
So a student needs to quarantine at home,
correct,
then what we would like,
because they or a family member have it.
yep, so then let's say they're elementary, so then they would connect the teacher that's connected with distance learners. And at the high school, then they would virtually be in class at the high school.
And then if they were too sick to view, it would be like other absences where an excused absence. What we're looking at is unexcused absences, but that would be excused.
And I think, Greg, maybe, this is just my opinion, but, and I don't have data, but I do believe there is data out there, but I think one of the things for looking at going back to school is for the mental health of the kids. And I do believe there is data out there of the increase in mental health issues with the kids not being able to be with their friends and being able to just be with others. And I think possibly the benefits of being able to at least be in class part-time outweighs the unknowns of COVID.
So you say it's more of a holistic approach instead of just focusing on the virus itself?
I do.
With like a bigger picture?
Yeah.
I guess what I've read lately with up to age of 10, I think, that kids don't react to the virus like somebody that's over the age of 10 and but we're still early into this too. But
I will say that I do slightly agree with Greg, but it's because I don't look at just the school aspect. I look at just what happened with our Club Bikes reaction and how it wasn't just one person. It wasn't just one family. It wasn't just one business. How much gets affected by one case. So I, as a parent, am nervous for the simple fact that if my children get it, my business gets affected, my staff members get affected, and we have a few large businesses, well, I should say one in particular, the turkey plant. One outbreak could potentially harm that business. I haven't in the last 2 weeks found necessarily an avenue that I felt the most comfortable with, because to me, with younger children, distance learning is a nightmare. I do understand that now there's a better plan versus the spring for the younger kids, which I hope goes really well for them. I worry about staff members, whether it's hybrid or all in, they still are here every day. They still have the exposure. You're not limiting exposure from staff. With not necessarily finding the right avenue where I feel 100%, I honestly don't think there's a right answer tonight at all. Whatever we do would agree on majority. There's not a right answer in my opinion. And regardless of what we pick, there are gonna be families who are sad, mad, hurt. So Greg, I do kind of agree with you, but I personally have thought about it for 2 weeks. I don't have the answer. I have no clue what to do tonight. I think each family, I'm very thankful that the governor made us require distance as an option, because I think that does open a lot for families so they don't feel stuck. But yeah, I don't have the answer.
I don't think anybody does.
No. But I do see Greg's point because I've struggled with it myself.
I think over the summer we've had, I've observed a lot of different activities. So in June, we had summer school at the high school, we had summer school at the elementary. And, and it first started with graduation, graduation outside, walking across the stage. And then we went to summer school and we had kids that chose in person or distant. So we had a nice little trial there. Elementary had in person, and then we've had club bikes, but then we've also had like the weight room activities. They've had basketball. We've had some different volleyball, and then volleyball is scrimmaged, teams from other towns. So we've had different things going on that we felt that, it's been day by day, week by week. And we felt going into this year that, looking at what we've done here in the summertime with, I've watched baseball teams, I've watched softball teams, I've watched the basketball, the volleyball, and then the weightlifting. And I think overall, we haven't seen a big concern yet at this point on August 17th. We still have a couple weeks here before the school starts, and we can always change. That's why we have 3 models. So that's why we have a COVID team to make it, get together, make a decision. Whatever you decide tonight, things still can change before even school year starts. There's a lot of factors, the mental health. There's people that want in person, and there's people that want distance. They all have a choice. They have a choice to stay at home and still get educated, and they have a choice to come to school and be in person as long as we allow that. So what I like about is we've had a lot of situations over the summer that we have felt pretty good about, and with our planning, and we feel that parents and students have a choice of what type of learning they want to choose.
I think we've kind of forgotten what stage we're in. We're not going to stop the spread. We just need to control it. We got to learn to live with it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The easiest thing to do, I think, would be to go to distance learning, but then you're not eligible for activities. Am I correct there?
Would not be able, Mr. Nelson should talk on that one. Is Mr. Nelson still with us?
We can only, if we go to distance learning, we could still have activities. We can't have activities if our numbers are so high that the numbers say we have to go to distance learning. Does that make sense? So if we choose to go distance learning, we could still have activities, but if we have to go to distance learning because our numbers are over 20 or 30 or whatever it is, then we can't have activities.
So some of the schools in the metro with the higher numbers, they're not eligible for sports activities?
At this time, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Another thing I think we need to look at now versus spring is the whole family union. Is there anybody at home that can help out with, if we go strictly district learning? A lot of those parents are back to work. Things are different in the spring where pretty much everybody, a lot of people had to be at home. I mean, they weren't working, and most of those people have gone back to work. So I think that's taking up a lot of resources for the kids at home, as well as a lot of those parents have gone back to work, and having in-school learning might be the best option or only option for them right now.
That's a good point. That's one reason we're recommending the in-person at the elementary, because those kids cannot stay home alone. So that way it's not inconveniencing the parents as much.
Ann, do you have anything?
I think everybody kind of touched on a lot of my thoughts as well. You know, families do have the option to do distance learning. They can choose to do that as a family unit if that's what they're wanting to do, even though they might have that in-person option or the hybrid option. You know, so there is some choice there. I don't know, like you said, I don't know what the future looks like, and things can change pretty rapidly from my understanding. So based on what the experts are saying and what our team has put together, what MDE has said, I mean, I think we're trying to make the best decision possible. And like Brittany said, not everybody's going to be happy.
Okay, thanks. Any other discussion? Okay, so this is the resolution. I'll do it by roll call. Ann, how do you resolve?
Aye.
Greg?
Nay.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Yes.
And yes. Resolution carries. Next item up, approve the Truth and Taxation public meeting date, December 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. That would be our regularly scheduled meeting. Probably no explanation needed.
That's just a standard thing we do every year.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the Truth and Taxation public meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Greg. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Brittany. Any discussion on the date?
Yes, the regular meeting would just follow the Truth and Taxation meeting, so that's how it would be posted.
Yes. December 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Any discussion on that? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. It'll be roll call again. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting date carries. Approve the vendor for milk products for 2020, 2021. Did we do this last meeting or?
We just saw them, I think.
Oh, just, okay. Called for the bids. Okay, what do we recommend here?
I would go to Rudy.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Yep, so meal kits came in. We had 3 bidders, Prairie Farms, Land O'Lakes. They are the ones who serviced us last year. We have Cass Clay. They did that the prior year. And then we have Cashwa, which is a branch of, I can't think what their parent company name is right now. Food Service of America, I believe it's their parent organization. They're all very competitive. The cheapest one is Land O'Lakes, followed by Cass Clay, and then Food Service of America. In terms of pricing, they're relatively very close to each other. I think when I spoke to our food service manager, Trudy Gordon and Jess Kelsrud, they shared some concerns regarding Land O'Lakes last year. There were multiple shipments where we received spoiled milk and damaged product. Now, we did receive a credit on account immediately, but it took substantial meetings with our account manager to get a resolution. So that is our only reservation in terms from a district and business perspective. With that, in terms of cost projection, they're within a couple dollars of each other. I think at this point in time, it's more of a service. I did receive from both that Cass Clay has been very good to the district in terms of service and the friendliness and willing to help. That is all that I have for you guys.
So is there a recommendation, I guess? I think service comes into play, obviously. Rudy, do you have a dollar amount in the total cost difference?
Let me see if I have a projection for you, Mike. I was running the numbers the other day. And I should say what we bid for was on the mill counts from last year or I'm sorry, 2 years ago. Because even last year with the pandemic and everything, we didn't have as much consumption.
They're all pretty close, but when you deal with bigger numbers, it adds up.
Right. I don't know how many containers of milk we go through a day.
So in terms of the difference in numbers, based on the numbers that we would be projecting is you're looking at Land O'Lakes somewhere in the ballpark of about $35,000. Cass Clay at about 36, and then Food Service of America somewhere in the ballpark of about 41. So the difference between Dean Foods and Cass Clay is about a $1,100 difference. The difference between Dean Foods and Food Service of America is about $6,500 difference. So just to kind of give you guys some perspective.
Who's historically had the best service?
Cass Clay.
I move that we approve Cass Clay as the vendor for milk products for the 2021 school year.
I'll second. Motion by Greg, second by myself. Any discussion on approving the milk bids for Cass Clay? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye for Cass Clay. I'll go by roll call. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Milk bids carry for Cass Clay. Next item up, approve the Viking Elementary Student Handbook for 2020, 2021. We got the explanation for earlier.
I'll make the motion to approve the elementary student school handbook for the 2021 school year.
Motion by Mike. Do we have a second? Just second by Brenda. Any discussion on the handbook before we vote?
Mr. Nelson, Greg Larson here.
Yes, sir.
We talked earlier about the high school attendance policy and how it potentially affects grading and things like that. I noticed when I reviewed the elementary version for attendance and discipline, I don't see any reference to the attendance and disciplinary issues affecting a grade. Does that mean it doesn't?
I don't think we have those type of issues like the high schools had. I don't know of any cases where the grade has been affected in the past.
What's your interpretation of the policy? Would you say that attendance or lack thereof and or disciplinary problems affect a student's grade at the Viking Elementary? Is that how you interpret the handbook?
I think at the elementary, the attendance is more of a parent issue. Getting the kids there, once the kids are there, they're not, I mean, they're there. If the kids are there, the more they miss school, the more their grade is going to be affected because of what they've missed will build up, especially like take math class, for example. If you keep missing skills, your grade's going to be affected because you're not going to be as productive doing later on math because you missed a lot of skills. So I think without saying it, those that miss a lot of school, grades will be affected.
But, and I understand what you're saying, but as far as a student gets a certain test score of 100%, and that same student's disruptive repeatedly, his grade will not be lower than 100%.
There's probably different circumstances, but for the most part, their grade probably will not be affected.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the elementary handbook? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. By roll call again. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Handbook carries. Next item up, approve the Pelican Rapids High School Student Handbook for 2021 school year. And we had that explained to us also. So entertain a motion for that.
I'll move to approve it with modifications to be made so that absences, tardiness, and disciplinary problems don't affect a student's grade.
Do we have a second? Have a second? And do we have a second?
Mr. Chairperson, may I just, I'm not going to add to my motion, but can I add one thing, a comment? To me, it makes it more consistent with the elementary handbook. I like the way the elementary handbook addresses it, independent of a student's marks in his or her class. And I just really like the independence of the behavioral issues and the actual outcome of a student's work on a particular assignment or test.
I have a question for admin or Jerry. When looking at the changes that have been made to our handbook in other districts, what do you tend to see coming from the other districts in the area or in Minnesota?
Mr. Korf or Mr. Bergerman, did you converse with other districts?
I'm going to go with on this. This has been a part of the handbook. We just added to it the COVID part this year. So we added to it probably a little bit more bite than it has in the past. But in doing that, we did not look at anybody else's plan of attack for their situations.
Mr. Larson, what do you think of classroom participation, a grade on classroom participation? So a student is, I won't even say present, I'm just saying a student listens, actively participates, that all of the things that you normally do as a student. Are you okay with teachers having a percentage of their grade on classroom participation? Is the person prepared? Are they asking questions? Are they listening appropriately? You know, are they working in groups appropriately? Your thoughts on class participation?
I see value in class participation, meaningful class participation. My concern with disciplinary matters or tardiness, for example, affecting a person's grade, is that a person could theoretically be tardy every single day by 2 minutes and be the most active and prepared participant in the classroom. So I don't know how to answer the question really directly, Mr. Ness, other than I guess to allocate a percentage of a child's grade when there's class sizes of 8 to 30 or whatever it may be, based on having every child be given a certain percentage or grade on participation, I think it just creates so much difficulty for a student to be able to comprehend what he or she needs. Unfortunately, grades are important when it comes to students as they graduate from high school, when they become eligible for different opportunities, whether it's directly into a career that they simply want to see a transcript, or college where they're looking at a transcript together with college entrance exam scores. So to see a student be penalized his or her potential entire life as a result of talking too much in class or being tardy one too many times, it's difficult for me to comprehend when we can have strictly discipline action protocol, like similar to that outlined in the elementary school handbook, as to how to deal with those issues.
Can I just bring up a real world example of where we're coming from? The milk bid. If we go with the lowest bid, no, why didn't we go with the lowest bid?
Service.
Service is what we are talking about when we come to education too. We want to prepare not only the product and the price, we want service to be excellent. And so that'd be a great example of why we might want to continue. It's up to you in the future, but why we might want to continue to have that as an aspect of the grade. Because we're really looking at the whole picture, not just the price, the service too.
And I appreciate the real world example, but I mean, there's several real world examples that could support both perspectives.
Yeah, I
Would
agree
you
with
agree
you,
with
and
that?
I just gave you ours.
Right. But what I'm talking about, I mean, I'd like to give a real world perspective too. If you hire somebody to take out your bathtub and reinstall a new bathtub, and both of them are required to be there at 9. One of them shows up at 9:01, one shows up at 9:02. The person that shows up at 9:02 does a better job and gets it done in 10 minutes, whereas the other guy stays for 3 hours. There's a lot of value to being efficient with the person's time. And I don't think the quantity, when you're looking at it from the time perspective, is the equivalent of service as it relates to the milk example that you provided. Because a child, whether he's there 48 minutes or 50 minutes, I would rather see quality than quantity. For a kid just to sit there and then be rewarded for that without taking any other action, versus a student who is late that immediately out the gate actively participates, I don't understand how that child would be subject to potentially being given a lower grade if everything else was constant between the two students.
If I have an employee who is continually late, they're going to be probably docked pay. There's a real world consequence.
I was just gonna say, I have the same
And
situation.
I think it carries over to high school.
Reflects on my evaluation at work,
There are
my
consequences.
grade, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
I look at it
I've
as
had real
more
world
of a
experience.
respect for the teacher,
And the other students.
responsibility. If I have the best employee who is constantly late, out of respect for the person's position that they're coming in for, and then also me for taking the time to schedule them, they may be my best employee while they're at work, but if they're constantly late, I will not schedule them next week because they have now wasted my time for all the work that I put in to schedule them, wait for them to show up. If someone needs to leave at 3 o'clock and they don't show up on time to fulfill that position, I may now have to take my time to fulfill the position because the person who's supposed to leave at 3 may have an appointment.
I'm 45 years old. I know I've been late on several occasions probably in my life for different things. Could have been a minute late. Other people have been late for meetings that I've attended on time. That stuff happens. For it to adversely a student and his or her opportunities post high school, I just think is a little
I
bit
guess
too much.
this is more of a chronic
Yeah.
being late issue than a,
I think if there's,
everyone can be late for something.
I think if there's a kid that is late that excessive amount of times where they're gonna get their grade docked, I'm pretty sure that the teachers would probably have stepped in and talked to the student to find out, you know, maybe their dad gets home from work at 7:30 and they can't get the car or whatever to get here on time. I think that it's, I think that's gonna be brought into play unless it's just somebody who's, you know, dilly-dallying in the hall every day for an extra couple minutes. I mean, I think they're gonna try to get to the bottom of why the student is late before it gets to the point where it's gonna dock their grade.
Do we trust our instructors
So-
enough to realize that, you know, there's gonna be those exceptions here and there to use their discretion instead of having it so black and white where you're 2 minutes late, you get a check mark? I'm hoping that's, you know, but it's the habituals I'm thinking that we're trying to not let it turn into. I don't know. Rick, I interrupted you, sorry.
Assuming this is a time-sensitive matter to be able to address the handbook tonight, correct?
And we don't have a meeting before school starts. At least one scheduled yet.
I think we have to look at this. This is gonna be different for students and teachers. The teachers are taking their whole class period to worry about who's there and who's coming in late and things like that, you know, to check their attendance. I think we have to support our teachers and we want kids to be on time because it will get very frustrating for teachers and for kids that want to learn if we have kids coming in late and we have to deal with those students. So for the kids that are going to be on time and want to learn, and our teachers, so we don't have so many interrupted time during class time, I think we need to support them. And I know our staff will work with kids if it's once or twice. So my recommendation is to support our staff, support Mr. Bergman, so we can give kids the best learning experience possible. And this experience is going to be very difficult for teachers and students.
You can also report back to the board, if it does pass as is, you could report back to the board how many times is a student grade being deducted. Did it happen 50 times or one time? It'd be interesting data to find out how many times it was actually put into place.
One thing that we had last spring is we had some kids that, you know, you can put your face on the screen And they did that, and they went to sleep, and they went back to bed. So the concern there is we want kids interacting, parents aren't at home. So we need to have some type of accountability.
And what I'm wondering is, can't that be accomplished through communication with the student and parent
Absolutely.
versus a grade being affected?
But that doesn't happen every time.
I know, but
You know what I mean?
one time.
With the collaboration of the three doesn't always work that way.
No, but if it does,
If it
It
does,
should.
then, if it does, I'm sure the teacher will work with the kid. I believe that.
to undo the
Correct.
A minus back to the A?
I believe our teachers will be very understanding of the situation. I haven't had a situation where that would make me think they wouldn't.
Well, I called Mr. Larson's motion 3 times. Jerry, should I call again or did it fail?
That motion would fail for lack of a second, so I would be looking for another motion, I guess.
I'll make the motion to approve the Pelican Rapids High School Student Handbook for the 2021 school year.
I will second. Now I need additional discussion on Mike's motion to approve student handbook for the high school.
It has nothing to do with a lack of support for the teachers or administration or anything like that. The concerns expressed by me are just my opinion of that. And I really care about the staff and I care about the administration. I also care about the students, just like all of us do. So I just wanted to relay that for purposes of just letting everybody know it wasn't intended to be adversarial in any capacity. It was simply just an opinion of mine in light of my comfort level. So
And I would say on our side, we should be able to defend in a situation when we're questioned, we need to be able to defend why we did what we did.
yeah, absolutely.
So it's that was, if I'm not able to defend it, then it shouldn't be in the handbook.
Okay. Do you have any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. We roll call again. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Nay.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Handbook carries. Next item up, approve the resolution relating to the the election of school board members and calling the school board election. My face ID doesn't work when I get a face mask.
Did we move F?
Oh, we haven't done the employee handbook, John.
Yeah, yes, F.
Oh, okay. I missed that, sorry. Okay, item F, we're gonna approve the Pelican Rapids School Employee Handbook for 2020, 2021. Is there any changes to that or?
The only change is on page 3 for face coverings and masks.
Okay. All right.
So page 3 has it highlighted. Yep. The
Yep.
face coverings and the masks.
Okay, got it.
A motion to approve the Pelican Rapids Schools Employee Handbook for 2020, 2021.
Motion by Ann, do we have a second?
I second.
A second by Brenda. Any discussion on the employee handbook? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. It'll be a roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Aye. Handbook carries. Now we'll move on to approve the resolution relating to the election of school board members and calling a school board election. Looks like another long one I get to read.
John, I think you could read the, the opening, make sure we know who's running for school board and, the highlights of that. And that will be posted onto the website if anyone would like to read the full resolution.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution relating to election of school board members and calling of school board elections. We have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Greg. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Ann. Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. Resolution relating to election of school board members and calling the school district general election. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 548, State of Minnesota as follows. It is necessary for the school district to hold its general election for the purpose of electing 3 school board members for the terms of 4 years each. Clerk shall include on the ballot the names of the individuals who file or have filed affidavits of candidacy during the period established for filing such affidavits, as though they had been included by name in this resolution. The clerk shall not include on the ballot the names of individuals who file timely affidavits of withdrawal in the manner specified by law. The general election is hereby called and elected to be held in conjunction with the state general election on Tuesday, the 3rd day of November 2020. Pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for this general election are those polling places and precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or in part within the school district. Voting hours of these polling places shall be the same as for the state general election. Okay, that's got the nuts and bolts. And the clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of said general election to be published in the official newspaper of the school district for 2 weeks, with the last publication being at least 1 week before the date of said election. Notice of election so posted and published shall state the offices to be filled set forth in the form of the ballot below, and shall include information concerning each established precincts and polling places. Clerk is further authorized and directed to cause or to cooperate with the proper election officials to cause ballots to be prepared for use at said election in substantially the following form, with such changes in form, color, and instructions as may be necessary to accommodate the optical scan voting machine. And as the ballot states, general election ballot, Independent School District 548, November 3rd, 2020. Instruction for voters. Completely fill in the oval, and it'll be school board member, vote for up to 3, and we have Stacy L. Cruz, John Carter, Ann Peterson, Molly Welch, and then write-in candidates if any. And I believe that's it. Constitutes the majority of it. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, this is a resolution. This is a resolution relating to the election of school board members and calling of school board election. A motion by Greg and a second by Ann. Ann, how do you resolve?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Brittany?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Resolution carries. Next item up, approve district priorities and goals for 2020, 2021.
So we've talked about our priorities and goals in, what was it, late July, early August at a work session. And we came up with our district priorities would be community engagement, educate the whole child, increase student enrollment, and sound and transparent financial practices. And then we set goals, district goals that we can measure. So the first district goal, we put 75% of students are ready for kindergarten based on teacher assessment. increase third grade reading proficiency by 5% would be our second district goal. Our third district goal is decrease the achievement gap of our free and reduced students by 5%. Our fourth goal would be increase graduates attending post-secondary to 60%. And our fifth district goal would be increase the district graduation rate to 95%. So those are our goals. Mr. Nelson, do you have any comments on any of the district goals that you'd like to add?
No.
All right.
So with the year that we might have, the 3 models, this will be a challenge.
It'll be a challenge.
But we're going to work hard to do our best. See what we can do.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the district priorities and goals for 2020, 2021?
So move.
Motion by Greg,
I'll second.
second by Brittany. Any discussion on approving district priorities and goals for 2020, 2021? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll do a roll call. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
John? Aye. Mr. Ness, I have a question.
Yes.
We have the bus company here. Would it be appropriate, even though we don't have them on the agenda, maybe they could fill us in since we have an audience watching of maybe what their plans are for COVID?
We would just add them into like a report that you had from administration, so that's certainly fine. Yep.
Okay. You want to? Sure. Yeah, get it close to the microphone. It's kind of a spiel, I guess.
There's room for you right there. We can put together.
Mr. Ness, can you hear us?
I can hear you well, thank you.
Okay. Just a quick report on what's going on with the buses. We've got hand sanitizer dispensers at the top of the steps on about half the buses.
Yeah, about half done.
Yeah, disinfectant, the same stuff that you're using on the desks and in school here. Sprayed on seats, handrails after every route. And we have enough for right now 128 gallons. So that should last a while. Hopefully, face masks, 500?
1,000, 2 boxes.
1,000?
Yeah.
One thing, in our Minnesota School Operators Association sends out a book every month, magazine, and it says kids with special needs have to have permission from the parents to have hand sanitizer. Because they'll probably be rubbing it in their eyes or licking it off or something, so they gotta have permission from the parents if they're riding the bus to use that.
Got every other seat decked off, so we just space them out.
The way it looks, that shouldn't be a problem.
Not, you guys are going to be K through 6 full-time, 7 through 12 hybrid. With a couple, 3 extra buses running to the apartments, we should be at 50% capacity or less. We should be able to make this work.
So families will sit together in a bus? Is that,
Families can.
what's that?
Families can sit together.
Families sit together?
That's what we
That'll be
understand.
the expectation. Families will sit together and then every other seat.
Right.
Staggered pickup, or I mean drop-off times or anything like that, or?
So far, we're gonna look at the same schedule.
Once we find out for sure who's not riding, especially the preschool kids. I'm working on that now, adding them to the bus routes, but
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna be on there sooner or later, but, so that's what I'm working on now.
How about bus transportation?
The drop-off at the elementary has kind of been staggered just the way it's worked out anyway, so.
How about activities, Mr. Nelson, for away events? So for hybrid or in person, does that affect how many kids can be on a bus?
Correct, it does.
Okay, so we're
So if you're full in person, you could go more on the bus than if you're in a hybrid model.
so it'd be like 50% of the bus.
Right.
Yep, of the capacity, so.
Capacity, yep.
So will that mean more than one bus to an event?
Good, yep,
For cross-country, it might be 2 buses then.
yeah.
My understanding was soccer is the same way.
Yeah.
JV and varsity is separate.
They're gonna keep them in their pods, yeah.
So that's what we're.
Yeah, because everything we're told is we want to keep our kids in pods as much as possible. So JV is probably separate from the varsities at all times, you know, during practice and everything. So that way if someone gets it, it's easier to track who they've been in close contact with than if everybody's been intermingling.
At the elementary drop-off now, the parents are going to be directed up to the Chauncey Martin Field to drop off.
Correct.
Privately, and then the buses will have sole use of the school lane then.
Correct, yep. So if I have tire tracks going over me, that was a car wanting to come in bad, so.
Ed used to dress up in costumes. Are you gonna do that?
Might have to.
Better visibility than the lakes.
Yeah.
Have any questions?
How are you guys heading for drivers?
Good.
Good.
One retired. We got spares so far.
Okay.
Anybody interested?
Not at the moment. Maybe
I'll
we'll
talk to you
retire.
later.
Okay. One other thing I'd like to add is after Mr. Carter read all the resolutions, I am so thankful he doesn't stutter.
I can work on that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, upcoming meetings to be determined. Special meeting to name Mr. Brian Court interim superintendent.
You know, just stopping there for a moment, just a little update. Mr. Korf is meeting with myself and his advisor from Moorhead State on Thursday morning to defend his e-folio, if you will. So that's the final step. I anticipate that'll go well. Dr. Mills will then give the okay and the necessary paperwork so Mr. Korf can send into Pelsby for license. We'll work on expediting that. But it could take up to 30 days. So I guess we just put this on there. We might need a quick special meeting to make that change. Hopefully prior to the school year. It would be great if he would be named prior to the school year. If it comes close to the 14th, then we can just have a special meeting, make that change, or naming him interim, and then do the work session. And if it's really late, we'll just put it on the regular agenda, just depending on the timing of when it arrives. So just giving the board a heads up. It's going to happen soon.
Okay, thank you. It's good to hear. Next item, work session, September 14th, 6 p.m. and regular meeting, September 21st at 6 p.m. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Brittany. Any discussion on adjourning? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call. Ann?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.